Do you like Dungeons and Dragons?
Do you like monsters?
Do you like Dungeons and Dragons and monsters?
Then we've got a show for you.
Kill Every Monster is a 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons podcast. In each episode, we are joined by a guest to discuss the lore, mechanics, and story potential of classic D&D creatures.
We debate tactics, and we talk about how to maximize these monsters both in combat and in your stories. And then we ask the very important question, is this even really a monster? To learn more about the show, head on over to killeverymonster.com.
And we'll see you next time for Kill Every Monster.
You know things, I know some too. Sit right down, the femsplain 'em to you. If there's a thing you want to explain, these two feminists can entertain. Nerdy stuff, sexy stuff, so much to know. Tune in for the Femsplain Show.
Femsplain!
Hey, Diana.
Hi, Avalon.
Hi, listeners.
Good morning, listeners. How are you?
Good. This is the evening.
No, but for the listeners, it's the morning.
The listeners, I'm sorry. The deal is that the listeners need to be on the same page as us. to follow
I thought
our
they
lead.
always had to listen in the morning.
If we record in the morning.
Oh, okay. So they just need to do what we do instinctually with no deviation. Okay. So
Correct,
good
yes.
evening, listeners.
Good evening.
If you've done it right, you're listening at approximately 11:20 p.m. Eastern time.
True.
Okay. Good. This is Femsplained. Femsplained is a podcast.
Femsplained is not only a podcast, but it is our podcast.
It is.
And it's our only podcast, and neither of us is allowed to start a second podcast.
That's true. And it is the covenant that we made when we started this podcast.
In blood.
It was a blood covenant, and there have been opportunities, but neither of us can take them because if we do, then we burn.
Mm-hmm. The other one burns.
Yeah.
And we can't live with the guilt.
Yeah, it's like a cat dog situation. It's
I mean, it's like a cat dog situation is just the new tagline for this podcast.
Just like cat dog. That was my favorite, and the episode of Cat Dog that most horrifies me to this day is the episode where they realize that whatever one does, it affects the other one. So they stop brushing their teeth.
How long could it possibly have taken to realize?
And it only existed in this one episode. It never happened again.
I remember now.
You know, and so one didn't ever brush their teeth, and so then the other one teeth rotted out of their head, and they do all sorts of horrible stuff. Yeah. Really, really messed with me, stuck with me. So that's how this podcast goes.
I'm surprised that you willingly entered into our covenant knowing what you knew of
I'm
Cat Dog.
highly, highly susceptible to peer pressure from you specifically.
Oh. I'm highly susceptible to peer pressure also from just me.
Just from me. I will do whatever you say. But Femsplained is a podcast and blood covenant wherein Avalon and Diana, two friends across the country, share our interests with each other and talk about those experiences in nerd culture from our queer nerd perspectives. And no one is allowed to question or quiz or interrupt us.
Mm-hmm.
Only us.
Only us. I have to say that I made the mistake of listening to one of our previous episodes right before we started recording. And so the things that I do that annoy me are very fresh. And I'm feeling hyper self-aware.
It's just what I recommend you do is I recommend that you because this is what happens to me. I edit the podcast. So every time we make an episode, I listen to it constantly to edit it, and I am constantly hearing all the things I hate about myself. And now I've reached a point where I still hear them. I hear them as I'm doing them, and I'm just like, well, it can't be helped because it's just so much.
Well, I'm honestly unsure if it's better to give up on yourself in the way that you've just described.
Yeah.
Or to just slowly cave in on yourself. Like a black hole.
I think that we all choose our own way. Giving up is my way.
Yes.
Caving in is your way. It's just
Yes.
like in our last episode, we talked about how our different queer identities, although under the same umbrella, come out differently. Same concept. Our way of dealing with the way that we talk
Yes.
leads to two different responses. Very similar end result, but different, all the same.
Well, I welcome our listeners to this Choose Your Own Adventure Insecurity podcast.
Yeah. If you skip
One of the
to
things that I'm
end-
not going to be doing is too many attending responses.
too many attending responses. What does that mean?
I am constantly saying mm-hmm and yeah in the middle of you making a point.
If you don't do that, I will die, Avalon. I need that verbal validation. Do you know that keeps me alive? If you stop, I will cease.
I'm only going to talk when it's my turn now.
The blood covenant. You risk me falling apart. Oh, wow.
So
That's terrifying. Oh, and as such, I will be making lots of noises in between my own sentences to give myself validation. Just watch.
Oh. So Diana, what has nerd culture done for you lately?
Ooh, switcheroony. Let's see, a lot. Okay, so nerd culture has done for me is I got to GM a great one shot for charity.
Oh yeah.
It was
wow, we haven't
fantastic.
recorded since then.
Yeah, it was fantastic. We did me, Ginny D, Gabe Hicks, who is Gabe James Games, and Persephone, who is Persephoroth on Twitter, played a game of Changeling the Lost for charity. We raised $2,500 for the Trans Lifeline. It was a blast. It was an absolute blast. It was so much fun, and they are all so beautiful and wonderful. Yeah, it was an absolute delight. And then the following Tuesday, so this past Tuesday, premiered the first episode of a game, Lost Across the Fence, a game set in the Coed and Cambria fictional universe of the Amory Wars. There are amazing people on that stream, and it has been fantastic so far. I'm especially really excited for this coming Tuesday, which will have passed by the time this comes out, for episode 2, because I think it's going to be really good now that we've hit our stride. You know, episode 1, everybody is feeling out their characters and testing relationships and stuff like that, and I've been paying attention to the group chat and watching how people are like feeling about their characters and who likes who and who is feeling like intrigued by who. And I can sense that there's like a real comfort in everybody's characters now. And I'm really excited for how that manifests in the second episode.
That's super exciting. How many episodes total?
It's 4, but we also have the potential for a 5th depending on if our arc ends. We have like a buffer episode set in case we don't close out neatly.
That's wise.
Yeah. I didn't want to like rush anybody into finishing. Yeah. And Avalon, what did nerd culture do for you lately?
That's a good question. I was going to say the Nintendo Direct, but that didn't actually do anything for me.
Yeah. We did not actually get to talk about that with Austin, even though we kept talking about it. Like we kept mentioning that we were gonna talk about it, but we didn't.
I'll just say that's what nerd culture has done for me.
Is talking to Austin.
Yeah, is that we got to be on Secret Histories of Nerd Mysteries, which hopefully comes out before this.
I think it does. Yeah.
Oh, great.
Yeah, I think it comes out Monday or Tuesday.
Okay, excellent. Oh, right. That would make sense. Here's what nerd culture has done for me lately, listeners. I recorded a podcast.
Okay, no. I love this. Go, please.
Diana and I guested on Secret Histories of Nerd Mysteries, which is something I was genuinely really thrilled to do.
Oh my God, so excited.
Really excited to do. And I just didn't record my audio. Just didn't. Didn't think of it. Didn't feel like I was forgetting something. Didn't have a technical malfunction. I just didn't.
Did not.
Just launched right in.
Started talking.
Just
I think the best
my
part,
ass off
now,
for 90 minutes.
I want to say something because I think that part of it is so funny, but there's also the part where like Austin did send like a brief like blurb about what to do to our account, but I know that I am the only one who has access to the account, so I didn't like say like, oh, we need to record separately. I do genuinely I should have thought to say something.
No.
But I think that the fun part to me, the funniest part, and I hope that you think it's funny because now everything's good and okay. But I think the funniest part is that we all clapped.
Yeah, I think about that clap a lot and what it meant to me in that moment.
Oftentimes when podcast recorders listeners are recording on separate audio tracks, we do a simultaneous clap at the start so that the person editing can find a spike in the audio to line everything up nice and even. Mm-hmm. So in Avalon's brain, we were being recorded on one track, so the clap truly should not have made should not have made any sense. I'm so sorry for poking fun because I do genuinely feel like there is a big part of me that was at fault for that, but
it's not, and I reject that you feel like you were in any way complicit. But it was a bummer.
It was because it was
a bummer.
The episode, we re-recorded it, so you will hear the episode, but you did miss a good episode. It was great. It was great. We had a great time.
There's a lot of stupid shit that came out of that conversation that is lost to the ages.
Yeah.
It dies with you and me and Austin.
I wonder, because Austin and I have our audios, and I wonder if, like, without yours, if it would sound absolutely bonkers, and like to have like this mystery of the crazy shit we said in like clips or something, but
so anyway, but you know what, honestly, I'm not saying that it was a good thing by any standard, but it did enable me to have the emotional breakdown that I really needed.
Because
I've been doing a lot better since I just hit rock bottom with that, and all of my little serotonin synapses just like blasted their way back open again.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but it's so the horror like washing over us both, and probably Austin too, but like mostly just us, as we realized what happened, and knowing that we needed to get off this call, but like also like knowing
I needed to not be alone.
Yeah.
That was the other problem.
Knowing that this was not okay.
I could see the exhaustion in Austin, and it was like, no, but I really need.
So we stayed up till about 3:00 in the morning. Eastern time, obviously. To decompress after that.
Yes, to de-escalate Avalon. And then just to be silly, and it was
and then
nice.
just be silly. But that's like what happens, right? You know, like you de-escalate, and then once you like leave the trauma brain,
Yeah.
you're able to like have fun, and it was a good night actually.
Yeah.
And the episode got re-recorded because Austin
It
is a
did.
good cat. And I'm really excited for you to
God.
hear it.
So I don't have to quit
Yeah,
the
you
internet,
don't.
which is what I was repeatedly threatening to do
Yeah.
in our in our debrief.
I was like, I can't speak to anyone ever again.
Yeah. Not even my own baby.
Yeah, that's it. But it was fantastic. Yeah, Secret Histories of Nerd Mysteries is who you should be listening to
Yeah, go check it out if you're not already.
ASAP. Whew. Okay, so our last episode was very special. It was our in-person episode that we recorded in Oregon. It was so good. It was so fun. And we talked about gender identity, queerness in that episode. It was wonderful.
I feel wildly like vulnerable and uncomfortable with that episode, but
Okay.
also happy.
Good.
I feel happy and weird.
Good.
That it's
Yeah. I mean, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I feel like there is a kind of pressure when you're talking about like identities and stuff like that on a podcast to like be instructional or like informational to people, and we were just really like talking about what it felt like to us, and I think that needs to be okay.
I loved you in it.
I loved you in it.
I don't, but
Well,
I think
don't.
that you did such a phenomenal job of being, I don't know, you like sounded like you had an inner light when you were talking about some of that stuff. You were just like fully claiming your experience in a way that seemed really self-assured and confident and warm and just like awesome.
I love that you got that from that. I don't feel those things necessarily, but I am trying to.
I think you felt that way when we were recording because we were sharing a chair.
Yeah, and I was
Yeah.
just I had my comfort Avalon.
Yes.
next to me.
And I said the word like approximately 13 times per sentence when I was talking about myself because I was so clammy talking about something so personal.
Yeah. Well, the fact that you hear that and I don't hear that when I'm listening to you.
Nuts.
I certainly don't hear self-assuredness when I'm talking.
Oh, yeah.
So like I think you need to be a little bit forgiving.
I think you need to not tell me what I need to be. How dare you?
Look, I'm right. You're
All right, so go listen to that episode if you
yeah.
like the gay stuff.
Yeah.
If you don't like the gay stuff, why are you here?
And if you liked the live recorded Mansplain Minute song,
Yeah, that
Go
was
to our-
really fun.
that was fun. If you want more of it, go to our Patreon. You'll hear every take.
You
that
made
it
it
took.
sound. You really made it feel like one take. You
I
a
did,
great
didn't
job,
I?
Diana, because there were 30.
There were 30 takes. It was so many takes. So if you want to hear the takes, you can go ahead and go to our Patreon, and that is Behind the Wall. I'm very excited about that. So that was our last episode. This episode, we are going to talk about what? We're going to talk about, oh, wait, we need a man. We need a man. Let's get a man in here to explain this one. Has he ever
You
seen
really
it?
are overconfident. That you think you can do it without a man. I don't know. We've
All
never
right.
talked about it.
All right, cool.
In a mansplain minute, things explained in a mansplain minute. Ooh, tell the ladies what to say in a mansplain minute.
Putting 1 minute on the man watch and go. Jennifer's Body. I have not seen Jennifer's Body. I can mansplain it though. 2009 slasher flick. Sort of a Mean Girls meets vampires meets demons or something. Stars Meghan Fox. Really, I could probably just say that. Stars Meghan Fox, and you would know everything you need to know about this film. Listen, I wouldn't presume to denigrate something with a 45% on Rotten Tomatoes, where it appears in the You Might Also Like bar alongside such classics as Jason Statham's Crank, High Voltage. Nor would I presume to criticize a movie included on Collider's 7 best horror movies on Tubi right now list. Whatever Tubi is. Let's just say we cinephiles go in for a more thought-provoking horror movie. A Hereditary, if you will. Something from A24, like Midsummer or Green Knight. I think I was supposed to be scared during Green Knight. Regardless, Jennifer's Body ain't it. And this has been your Mansplain Minute.
We are talking about Jennifer's Body. Jennifer's Body, you've never seen it, correct?
No.
Okay. So Jennifer's Body is a comedic horror film. It's a satire, but I don't know if that's exactly the best word for it. With Amanda Seyfried and Megan Fox as the stars. Adam Brody, who was Seth on the OC. Amy Sedaris from Strangers with Candy is a side character. There are a couple other recognizable people or people who go on to have recognizable careers after that. It was not well received when it was released. It was not well received, and it was not received the way that it was intended to be. It had a lot of mixed criticism, a lot of criticism that does not make sense to people who have seen the movie. So it was dismissed pretty much by critics. And it is a movie about, so Megan Fox plays Jennifer Check, who is I don't want to say a stereotypical popular girl. She's a hot girl in high school. She is not necessarily the most popular girl. She's not head of the cheerleading squad. She's head of color guard. So she's like, it's like she's not quite the top of the food chain in the high school. She's just a very hot, semi-popular girl. And her best friend, who is named Needy, which is a nickname that's pretty mean, is a kind of nerdy looking girl played by Amanda Seyfried. She's a little bookish, a little bit, obviously it's Amanda Seyfried. She's beautiful, but she dresses, frumpier, I guess. Acts a little bit nerdier, doesn't dress as conventionally pretty. But they're best friends. They've been best friends since elementary school, and they're best friends into high school. And Jennifer is Needy's best friend, but is kind of mean to her. Like, she pushes her around, gets her to do stuff she's not comfortable doing, and isn't, right from the start, is kind of, pushy with that. And gets her to go to this concert at a dive bar where inexplicably a band from, I think, New York or LA, I can't remember. They're in the middle of nowhere. They're like in a podunk town, and this band from a big city, either New York or LA, have come there to play a show at their dive bar. Doesn't make sense. Needy questions it, doesn't feel comfortable. She pushes her to go. And it's Adam Brody and his band are there. And as it turns out, they're there because this place has a great crime scene. Like, it has a perfect way to hide a murder weapon. It has this place called Devil's Kettle. It's a stream that enters like a deep hole that nothing has ever surfaced from. Like scientists have come there, they've dropped stuff down and it never comes back up again. So they have come there because it's the perfect place to commit a murder, and they have decided that in order to become famous musicians, they need to make an offering to the devil. They've become bewitched by some sort of like, and it's very funny because they've become bewitched by a very like marketable Satanism. Like they Googled a spell for how to sacrifice a virgin to become famous. Jennifer Check at this bar is flirting with them and is absolutely not a virgin. But in her defense, when she gets objectified, her friend tells them that she is. So they kind of orchestrate a situation. They set the bar on fire to cause chaos. And in the chaos, they whisk Jennifer away in their van in the shock. And they sacrifice her as a virgin to get their powers. But because if you sacrifice a virgin that isn't actually a virgin, the spell goes kind of wonky and they get what they want, but she also gets like powers and basically becomes a succubus. So she shows up the next day at school and is now slowly becoming acclimated to this new self where she is seducing the boys in her school and then eating them. The movie is really about, I think, it's a kind of satire on the nature of high school. And there's a lot of commentary about tragedy in high school. There's lots of like, as these kids are dying, there's a lot of poignant scenes of like the way that high schoolers are forced to like mourn and then like just get right back to life when all these tragedies happen around them, which was something that like felt very funny in a dark way to me, which, you know, and also Needy and Jennifer's relationship, which is where now Needy being critical of Jennifer is coming off as jealousy because Jennifer is just getting so much attention and she's so beautiful and everybody loves her, and your criticism of her is not, you know, fair. To the point where her own boyfriend starts to like question her judgment about these things. And there's so much good teen language in it. There's so much slang and like social media talk and kind of just like, I don't know, the language of young people is utilized aggressively to the point where it's, I don't want to say young people. It's aggressively written in the language of young teen women. It's written to have that as the prominent voice. And I think that this movie, because of Meghan Fox's image at the time, was marketed as a sexy movie for men about a sexy girl in a sexy horror movie. Yeah. And it is absolutely not that. It's a movie for women about like the turmoil of female relationships in high school, written through a monster movie.
Yeah.
That's what it actually like. It's meant to evoke the same emotions of being a young girl and feeling crazy and like, I think, at war with your best friend, the person you love the most being also your enemy for some reason, and all kinds of things like that. And it's written in that language. And then it just did not get received well by the audience that it was being marketed towards, because it was definitely not for them. They are the victims of the movie. In fact, they're not even the real victims. They're kind of fodder. They're thrown away. They come onto the scene and then they're killed, like as instantly as girls often are in other horror movies. The main conflict is between Needy and Jennifer and their friendship and what this shift has exposed about it, and how Needy needs to, defeat her. So yeah, anyway, it is deeply underappreciated and it's very funny. It's, if it had not been so undersold, I don't know that I would call it like a fucking masterpiece or anything, but it is definitely a good movie that was not ever received as such.
I recall specifically that it was marketed incorrectly.
Yeah.
That's why I've never seen it.
Yeah.
And I feel like because it's a combination of misunderstood and a unique lens.
Mm-hmm.
Like, to me, that's sort of the combination that comes together for 5-10 years later for things to have a little bit more of a cult following.
Well,
which
sure.
This seems like it has, or it's building. I'm seeing more and more.
It's building for sure. Megan Fox recently said on a red carpet that this is the character she gets asked about the most recently. Which I think it took a while because this came out in 2009. And in the last several years, the last couple of years, I have started to hear more people talk about like this movie in a I think also Megan Fox has sort of started to break away from the kind of Hollywood blacklist that she was on temporarily at the time. So that also may be why it is now kind of gaining that cult status. People have heard about that.
Yeah. I'm glad you said what year it was from, because I kept trying to pinpoint where I was at in my life and what my journey with internalized misogyny was at the time. 2009 sounds pretty peak.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, me too.
and Megan Fox still had so much Michael Bay.
Yep. It's on the tail end of her being blacklisted by Michael Bay.
Yeah.
And when I didn't see it when it first came out, I saw it a few years later as just it was a movie that was I think literally like free to rent when I was home for the summer or something like that on my parents' whatever nonsense that they had that wasn't a streaming service, like a pay-per-view thing that they had.
Yeah.
And I just happened to put it on and then was like, wait, what? like what? What is this? It's super funny. Oh, okay. So I actually did see that. I guess it started to get resonance again in 2018. So 2009 to 2018, that's a pretty significant gap. But in 2018 is when it started to get.
Did something catalyze that in 2018?
Me Too movement.
Oh.
So I remember there was an interview with Megan Fox. I forget who interviewed her, but somebody asked, and this interview stuck out to me because some talk show host said that, people have mentioned you and want to know if you feel represented by this movement. And I think boldly and bravely she said, no, I don't, because I don't think that this movement wants me. I feel she said openly that she doesn't feel like she would be supported by the Me Too movement if she said what had happened to her. And I think
I'm just trying to clarify. The implication is it's because of how like overtly sexy she is.
And I guess how she's seen or how she's like received or marketed or whatever.
Right.
She didn't explicitly say, but she just felt like that she would not be accepted by the movement, which I thought was something I don't want to be true, but I could see it.
I feel like she was marketed as threatening to women
Yes.
in a way that I can't really think of another example of an actor.
Yeah.
And I will say fully that that's probably why I have a sense that I dislike her. And
Yeah.
I don't want to see her movies, at least at the time. Yeah, she was definitely like served up as like a bimbo, I guess, by Michael Bay. I don't know. I feel like I should know better than that. I feel like I should not have those shared opinions, but that is my recollection of peak Meghan Fox.
So in relation to her saying that like she felt like maybe her experience would not be accepted by the Me Too movement, when she first told a story around the time this movie came out, around 2009. She told the story of her first experience with Michael Bay and how he grabbed her when she was 15 years old in Bad Boys 2 and told her and basically said, we can't have you seated at the bar because you're not 21. So instead they dragged her up under a light on the stage in a bikini and high heels and had her doused in water. And she told that story, and like if you're watching, like she tells this story very clearly expecting one reaction, and the audience is like whooping, like and like Jimmy Kimmel is like clapping and like laughing and like stuff like that. Like it's a very like, and she just kind of has this dry look about her when she tells the story and then just kind of moves on. But like you could kind of tell that at the beginning she was telling the story to showcase that was not normal or okay, but the reaction is so, you know, like the wrong one. So I kind of get that assumption that maybe people would not be there for her or accept that story. But yeah, so it's this, you know, it's interesting because I feel like a lot of you know, so many movies or so many actors and actresses have like ties to, you know, you can draw some sort of line to where like these movements have happened and like where they came from and stuff like that. But this movie has like a significant place in it, you know, somewhere where it's like all the reasons it was under appreciated at the time were all like kind of a direct relation to the perfect storm of the movie marketing it the way that they wanted her to be marketed, which then undersold what her character really was, and also like just the poor marketing of a movie that should have been aimed towards like young women. Like it should have been like marketed towards that audience, but was not, or like even marketed as a, you know, as a dark comedy, like truthfully, which it also wasn't really.
Do you know much about Diablo Cody?
Not really.
Okay. So Diablo Cody wrote it, and I just think that this is another thing that very interestingly plays into how the movie was not like marketed as it was intended or was misunderstood. Because I don't think that you have a lot of female screenwriters, and I think that she was fairly new.
Yeah.
But she also, so she was, she danced. She was a stripper. she may or may not have done other sex work. So I think that also that voice in the script is also probably something that
Yes.
major studios did not know how to market correctly.
No.
And it kind of gets to that point that you were making of how everything that was perceived as wrong with it is kind of a direct result of what it was intended to be.
Right. Yeah. And the cult following has really appreciated it well. It's great to see. It's nice to see like how much the cult following has really nailed all of the great parts and the funny parts, like the deeply funny parts. It's sad because as much as these things get a cult following, nothing about a cult following helps us to change the trajectory of like how Hollywood makes things. I feel maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like if it doesn't make the money, like the box office money, it doesn't send the message that this is what we want to see. It's like have you ever heard of it's been a really long time, but I think it's called the Glass Cliff. So the Glass Cliff is, and again, if I'm remembering it right, it's been a while. It's something I learned in sociology back in my undergrad, of like the quote unquote phenomenon that wasn't really a phenomenon of marginalized people, often women or people of color, like taking leadership positions in big companies right before the company fails and taking the blame for that, like as why the company failed. And so then nobody ever hires, or elevates someone to that stature again, when really often it gets linked to an intentional practice of elevating a scapegoat.
Yeah.
Basically, when you know that the company's already going down. And so like, obviously this is not quite that. Nobody like knew this movie was going to fail, but the intention, like the poor marketing, like all of those things, like selling it in antithetical ways to what it actually was, and then it not doing well in the box office. Like, are we gonna get a movie made like that again, or like made by those people again?
You know where I think the strength lies in cult stuff is merchandising. I think that once something achieves cult status and there's a lot of money to be made in merchandising, that's where you start getting like reboots or new versions of things or prolonged sequels that never actually capture the original spirit of the thing.
Just
but
to cash
I do
in on
think
it,
I think that's the only place where it has power potentially. When something's a cult film, but that in no way is a good thing. So.
I would really love for it to like influence things and for more stuff to be made with this voice.
Or maybe there is. Maybe it's just that slow progress is harder to measure. So 2009 to now, does that movie seem as outrageous now as it did then? That it would be made?
The thing is, it shouldn't have felt outrageous then. Well, it just, maybe it would have. I don't know. It clearly, I guess, was confusing for some men who found that they could not appropriately masturbate to it. But
so here's a question that I have as someone who has not seen this movie and genuinely maybe saw the trailer like once, so I got nothing. I've seen a lot of like fan art recently that seems to indicate that like there's a lesbian thing going on.
Yeah. So there's a it's kind of right from the start kind of implied. It's not explicit, but it is implied that this relationship between Needy and Jennifer, why Needy puts up with Jennifer's antics and her bullying and stuff like that, why she continues to call her best friend even though she's not really exactly treated equally in this relationship. Especially when, contrary, Needy does not seem to care about the approval of others at the school. So it's not like she's kind of the lonely kid at school who's wanting. She has a boyfriend, she has friends, she's like involved in clubs, she has social life, but she's obsessed with her best friend Jennifer, and there is a suggestion from the start that this bond that they have is a little bit more than that. And then later on in the film, that gets confirmed by Jennifer in a iconic line where they are in their final fight and Needy says, "I thought you only killed boys," and Jennifer says, "I go both ways." They, all like a lot of things are delivered as a joke, but there is actually like a kind of intimate scene that feels very familiar, where they are laughing during a sleepover and then kiss and then laugh again. And it's a very girls first like test of that like limit where it's just, oh my God, I can't believe we did that. Ha 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 ha. But it's, you know, it is definitely heavily implied, if not outright.
Can
stated.
I ask if that scene feels queer or if it feels male gazy?
I will say the setting of the scene, every part of that scene, with the exception of the actual filming of the kiss itself, feels very relatable to me. They do a close-up of the kiss that is very, you know, aesthetically pleasing. I'm not going to say I hated it. It was very good to look at.
It's two hot girls.
But the way that the kiss itself is filmed is definitely a little male gazy. But the rest of it does feel, the whole scene and like how it happens and the laughter afterwards and like the weird like awkward cursing out after it happens felt like something that is very relatable.
How fun.
Yeah.
I want to know a lot about like what went into that part of the script.
Yeah. Yeah, I think if I had to make some guesses, I would guess that kiss, I think that the kiss was probably intended to be in it from the beginning. I would guess that the way that it was filmed was probably something that needed to be like coerced, like like, because it did cut away. It was like, here's the scene, we're cutting to this scene of the kiss, and then we're cutting away to back to the rest of the movie. Is kind of how it felt. Like, here's this spliced in porny kiss.
Right.
You know, like, but
I bet that was negotiated in a really interesting way.
I think David Bowie actually was the one who
Get out of here.
who insisted.
He would not. It would not be porny if he had done it.
Said this kiss is not slutty enough. We need more.
All right, listeners, you got to go listen to Secret Histories.
Yeah, to have context to what I just said.
Yes.
I swear it's very funny, though, in context.
Well, okay, so are there any other characters in this movie that we haven't really touched on yet?
Okay, so yes, we haven't talked about Low Shoulder, which is the band. So the band that starts all of this, they really do have a success. And I actually think that that's an important theme throughout the movie, is that they do get what they wanted out of ruining Jennifer's life and ruining the lives of all the people in this town. They get success. They get famous. They're and they actually use the tragedy of what happened in this town as sort of their jumping off point. So whether or not it was actually like the magic doing it or whatever, but they go on radio shows talking about like the tragedy of Low Shoulder, like they're gonna the tragedy of Devil's Kettle, they're gonna donate a portion of their record sales to the people of the town, like, and they get lauded and they get put on radio shows, and they start going, you know, they start getting all of this wild fame, and it's a backdrop. You hear them over the loudspeaker in the school while scenes are going on. You hear them in the car radio. You hear them like while the mom, Amy Sedaris's character, is getting ready for work. You hear, and it's the same song over and over again, and you just hear different iterations of it throughout the movie. And the song, as the movie goes on, gets more and more better produced. Like it's like like as they get more famous, it's like it's a better quality, and you hear like this, like it develop and get better sounding, etc.
That's a really interesting choice.
And I think and as that's happening, Needy's life and Jennifer's life is turning into complete shit, like, and falling apart. And I think that tells a story of what it feels like to be like, you know, like to be a victim, like, you know, to be a victim and to not have your, you know, victimizer face any consequences, and instead to watch them, like, you know, like, or to hear them, like their success, like echoing everywhere, like all over the place. And it becomes like, even just watching it as a viewer, you feel infuriated by the sounds of like this band like playing in the background.
Do you have any more like deep analyses of themes that are at play, or the meaning of choices from the movie? Because it feels like there's a lot there.
Yes, I think that Needy's character is someone who, so like her name is Anita. Never once in any scene in this movie is she ever called that. She's called Needy by everyone. Her boyfriend, her best friend, her mom. Everyone calls her Needy. I don't think that that's necessarily realistic. I think that it's meant to be uncomfortable that this girl does not like have anyone who like, you know, sees her as not like, I don't know, or an annoyance or something like that. Like, Needy is not a nice nickname. But she has a boyfriend who seems like a nice guy. He's played by Johnny Simmons, who is in Scott Pilgrim. He plays young Neil in Scott Pilgrim.
Okay. Yeah.
So, and he comes off as very sweet, very, very kind, very nice, but he calls her this, and even when he gets like lured by Jennifer, he falls for it too. Like, it's kind of like this, to me, I don't know what was intended, but to me it feels like, you know, next to like the lures of a succubus, which, you know, are what they are, you don't stand a chance even with the people who care about you. Like, no one's going to believe you, no one's going to do anything, and no one is safe, like even the people who are quote unquote loyal to you. And I think that ultimately the ultimate point is at the end, Jennifer is also a victim. Like, and that it's easy to victimize it, to villainize her during like the center points of this movie where she's eating the boys and stuff like that. But at the end, defeating her, the last thing that happens, you know, like Needy does win and does defeat her in a fight. The first thing that happens when Needy defeats her is not only Needy beginning to weep, but Jennifer's mother like comes in and starts to just weep. Jennifer's mother, who presumably didn't know she did anything wrong. Like, this is just a teenage girl. Like, how could anything have happened that would justify what just happened to my daughter? Like, it's such a heartbreaking, and like the music stops and it's just this mother grieving over a teenage girl who is now dead. And like, it's, there's no winner in this like war between these two girls. Yeah. The only winner is this man far away who's, you know, getting drunk and high in a hotel room somewhere, rich and happy. And that's, you know, like it brings the focus back to like that's the actual villain.
Well, that sounds solid.
Yeah. I don't want to like, you know, make it out to be like revolutionary or anything, but it's just, it's a good movie and it has good themes and poignant themes. They're not anything that, you know, would probably blow your mind in any way. It's just that the fact that it was so underappreciated really highlights that any movie talking about like these things in any sort of a clever way, you know, is so,
yeah,
you know, underappreciated.
Well, I'm really looking forward to watching it.
Me too. I'm really, I think you would like it. I think it's very funny. And,
I'm
you know,
pretty sold. And
also, you know, Amy Sedaris is great.
Yeah.
She doesn't have to do much. She's just a good person.
And I really need to make amends with Meghan Fox.
Yeah. It's a part of all our journeys.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what are you going to do after this?
I mean, I'm probably going to, you know, just get ready for bed.
Oh, that's good. Me too.
What are you going to do?
Yeah, probably that too. I'm riding my bike to work every day.
Good for you.
I've been doing that since last Friday. Not like 2 days ago, but
I was like, have you had work since Friday?
No,
it's Sunday.
Previous Friday.
Well, that's great.
Yeah, it's.
Do you wear a helmet?
I do.
Good, thank you.
Stunned by how many people do not, but I do.
I have real issues with that.
Yeah, me too. I do wear a helmet. And I
listeners, please wear a helmet.
Wear a helmet.
Like, it's not cute.
Yeah, it's not. You don't look cute. Don't.
No. You don't look cute without a helmet.
You don't.
You only look cute with a helmet. I don't care what it does to your hair.
Yeah.
I really don't care.
No. So that's what I'm going to do, is go to sleep so that I can have the energy to keep that up.
Good. Wow, I'm so proud of you.
Thanks.
I may start riding my bike to work once I'm no longer doing the daycare drop-off.
Ooh, fun.
Maybe.
When does that stop?
October.
Oh, well, that's like soon.
I know.
Ah.
All right, we'll see.
Bike buddies.
Oh, I think I need to fix one of my tires. But yeah. All right, peer pressure me into that.
I will do that. All right, listeners, wear your helmets.
Wear your fucking
and make
helmets.
Amends with
and
Meghan
make
Fox.
amends with Meghan Fox. Sweet.
Good night.
Good night.
You can find all of our Femsplained content either on patreon.com/Femsplained. Twitter, you can find us at FemsplainedCast. Instagram, you can find us at Femsplain Podcast, and you can check out superdylan.com/femsplain to find the guest form and all of the different places where you can listen and connect with us.
Awesome. You can find and follow me, Avalon, at @A_catattack on both Twitter and Twitch.
And you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, TikTok, and all the places at Super Dylan, and that is DILLIN.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your support. Bye.
Bye.